Hello and welcome back to Tejedora Knits. My name is Gladys. I am a knitter and crafter based out of Southern Nevada, and today I wanted to share with you 20 knitting patterns designed by Latin American knitwear designers. So one of my goals for 2025 is experimentation. So experimenting with different types of yarns, with different constructions, and that also involves different knitwear designers as well. So trying to step out of my comfort zone, discover new designers, and just, be inspired by all of the different variety and creativity that is around us in the knitwear community. So I wanted to piece together this compilation for you, and I was inspired by one of my favorite knitting YouTube channels, easily Knitfluenced. Her name is Michelle, and she put together a 20 Japanese designed knitwear patterns. She is of Japanese heritage. I believe she's half Japanese, if I'm not mistaken, or if so, I know she has some sort of Japanese background. So I decided it would be a really fun practice to do that with my own background. So I am Mexican American. Ethnically, I am 100% Mexican. Both of my parents are from Mexico. I spent my part of my childhood, my adolescence, my early adulthood living in Mexico. So Mexico is forever my home. That is where my heart belongs. And I just wanted to highlight some of the beautiful knitwear pieces that are coming from our Latin American culture. So I will say that knitting isn't super common in Mexican culture in general. I will say in my region, I am from a cooler mountain climate up in the northwest of the country. So I am a couple of hours away from the coldest area of the entire country. So knitting is slightly more common in my region. I do have aunts and, family members who knit. However, a lot of the climate in the central and southern areas of the country are quite either warm in general, cool, tropical, so the lack of long, harsh winters, we shall say. And especially, again, in the central and southern Mexico, our indigenous culture focuses more so on weaving, on embroidery, on beadwork, and not so much on knitwear. So that is why it's not, 20 Mexican designed knitwear patterns, because I found it quite difficult to find Mexican designers. So we are going with all of Latin America. So that encompasses Mexico, which is in North America, and all of the countries in Southern and Central America as well. So I thought this was a really fun practice. I really enjoyed pulling together all of these patterns for you guys. Hopefully you find it inspiring and, discover a new designer along the way. So without further ado, let's get going. So let's start geographically, working our way from north to south. So we will start in northern Mexico. So the first designer that I have here is Griselda Zarate. So she is from Monterrey, Mexico, which is not too far away from where I am from. And she is a literature professor. So if I were to describe her pattern style, I would say simple, rustic, and grounding, very connecting to nature. Most of her patterns are published through, magazines and other publishing platforms. So the main ones that I have seen is Lina magazine and Knit Picks. So there are two patterns of hers that I would like to emphasize. So first we have Brisa al atardecer, which translates to sunset breeze. So this is a pullover sweater that is published in Lina magazine issue number 21. So it is a sport and a lace weight held together at an 18 stitch gauge per 4 inches. And it is a worked in an all over lace stitch pattern, which you will come to see in this compilation. I am a big lover of textured knits. I feel like the knitting experience is very enjoyable. I'm staying more engaged as opposed to, plainer knits. So that is, a personal love for myself. This has more of a boxy cropped fit. It is worked top down with a slight V-neck shaping and I-cord edging, all details that I love and I find to be really polished and lovely. And it is recommended to wear with 4 inches of positive ease, which I also think is a good sweet spot, not too oversized, but also still having, some roominess to it. Her color combinations and the styling of these pictures are beautiful. The next one from Griselda is Beloved. So Beloved is a cardigan that is published in Lina magazine issue number 13. It is worked up in a worsted weight to a gauge of 18 stitches per 4 inches. So it's a cozy, comfortable cardigan knit in 2-color half brioche stitch. Now, brioche stitch is one of those techniques that is still a bit intimidating for me. However, if you are feeling a little bit more comfortable with brioche, or are very adventurous and want to dive right in, I think this is a beautiful pattern. Her, again, as the same as the previous pattern, very beautiful, natural, rustic color combinations that really emphasize that connection with nature. She says that she was inspired by cold days spent seated by the fire with friends and loved ones. If you take particular care with the finishing, you can also wear the wrong side of the cardigan as the right side. So it can be both a double-faced garment, which I think is a fun little touch. So those were the 2 patterns that I have by Griselda. The next designer that I have is Sandra Gutierrez, also known as Nomad Stiches. So come to find out that she was actually born in Spain, but she did grow up in Mexico. And as her name might indicate, Nomad Stiches, she has lived in at least 9 other countries, maybe 10 by the time I'm filming this. And one of her main bases has been the UK. I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure where she's based out of right now. I know that she has announced it in her Instagram. I do like to follow her on Instagram and on YouTube as well. She currently has a series going on about crochet fit. So getting, proper tailoring in crochet garments. So that is one thing I was going to comment about her, that she does have more crochet patterns than knitwear, which I think fills in a much needed gap. I learned to crochet and was doing crochet before I was knitting, and I was kind of struggling to find crochet patterns that had a nice tailored fit to it and weren't extremely boxy per se. So I wish I would have found the Sandra's patterns back when I was spending more time crocheting, because I think she really does nail proper fit when it comes to crochet garments. So there are 3 patterns of hers that I would like to highlight. 2 of them are crochet and 1 of them is knitting. So I'll start with the knit pattern, which is the Ixchel Pullover. So the Ixchel Pullover is worked up in a worsted weight yarn to a gauge of 17 stitches per 4 inches. Ixchel was the Maya goddess of the moon, of love, of gestation, of medicine, and of textile arts. So very fitting name. And you could really see how she pulled inspiration from the Mayan geometric figures and, shapes and the imagery. I think this is a beautiful tribute and reflection to Mayan culture. So it is a circular yoke, and it does use mosaic knitting for the color work. I think this is absolutely beautiful. Like no more comments. Like it's just stunning. Next, I will move into one of her crochet patterns, and it is the Mosaic Jumper. So again, just a moment for this color work. This is beautiful. So this is worked in a fingering and a lace weight yarn held together for a gauge of 17 stitches per 4 inches. And she describes the Mosaic Jumper as a celebration of nature at its best. It is inspired by flower meadows that lay dormant in winter, only to burst out in color with the arrival of spring. So it's a round yoke pullover, and it has short rows, which I have never done short rows in crochet. You know what? This sweater might just inspire me to, go back to my crochet to my crochet roots for a moment. It is really, really beautiful. And the last pattern that I have from her is the Aurora Vest. This one is worked up in a fingering weight to a gauge of 22 stitches per 4 inches. So this is a tie vest, and I feel like this one is very nomadic for sure. I feel like her patterns really show the amalgamation of culture and travel that she has accumulated throughout her lifetime. So it has like that mountain color work background inspiration on the back of it, and it has ties at the waist. So I think it has a really cute fit. So Aurora means dawn, the start of a new day. And the Aurora Vest was inspired by the changing of the seasons, what's beyond the horizon, and the desire to renew oneself. So those are the two designers that I have that have roots in Mexico. Moving on south, our next stop is in El Salvador with Claudia Quintanilla, also known for her shop, Unit Toronto. So Claudia is actually the very first Latina knitwear designer that I had encountered. I just had never seen a Latina in the knitting community at that point. So I just, didn't think much of it. To be fair, Claudia did leave her home country of El Salvador and is currently living in Toronto, Canada. So she does live in a climate, again, that is more conducive towards knitwear and knitting garments as opposed to her native country of El Salvador. So there is that distinction to be said. But I think she has definitely forged a name for herself in the knitting community. And she has some beautiful patterns. She has a recent book called Memory Lane. She focuses more like on elegant, dainty, more elevated pieces. Nostalgia is something that she does very, very well, especially in her book Memory Lane. I also discovered that she has a kids book as well. So if you are looking for more kid knitting pattern or inspiration, I think her kid patterns are really cute as well. But I'm going to focus on the adult patterns. So there are 4 patterns of hers that I have chosen. I tried to not include too many from her book because I really do like a lot of the patterns from Memory Lane, but I'm only including 1 from Memory Lane. So we'll start with the Cathedral Pullover. So the Cathedral Pullover is worked up in a worsted weight yarn to a gauge of 19 stitches per 4 inches. And it has a lace motif on the yoke, reminiscent of the intricate spires seen on Gothic and Neo-Gothic cathedrals. So therefore the name Cathedral Pullover. So it is a rounded yoke. And again, a very dainty and fun. Also, the pink color that she chose for her sample is very beautiful as well. That is the first one. Next, I have Meridienne, which is worked up in an Aran weight, so a lace and a DK held together to a gauge of 16 stitches per 4 inches. And this is the cutest little mini dress. Now, I will say knitting a dress, hand knitting a dress, must be such a labor of love. I can't even imagine. I feel like by the time that you're nearing the end of a sweater, it's kind of like, okay, I really wish I was done with this. So I can imagine you would need so much patience to get through knitting a full dress. Now it is a bit of a larger gauge, so that should help it, kind of pass by a little bit quicker. So this one is knit bottom up with a simple texture in the skirt that transitions to a geometric texture in the yoke. So lots of texture. Again, as we have mentioned, this texture lover over here thinks that this is absolutely beautiful. Maybe one day I'll work up the courage and the patience to knit a dress. Next is another cardigan. This is the Amapola Cardigan. Worked together on worked with a bulky weight yarn on a gauge of 14 stitches per 4 inches. So this is a fun, drapey, has like that bubble sleeve. So Amapola is Spanish for poppy, and it represents both simplicity and brilliance. It is a quick, chunky knit with an elegant neckband and balloon sleeves that cinch at the wrist for a feminine look. It's a wonderful transition piece that can be layered for winter or more so for spring. Also knit up in a very dainty pastel pink color. And then the last pattern that I have from Claudia is the one from her book Memory Lane. So I chose to highlight Conacaste. This is done in a lace weight for a gauge of 26 stitches per 4 inches. So more of a lightweight garment. So the sweater draws inspiration from her grandfather and his favorite type of wood. Conacaste is a type of wood that is native to the tropical regions of the Americas and is known for its durability and strength. The tree's straight lines and honey-colored wood, which darkens over time, mirror this cardigan's timeless look. Dedicated to her grandfather, Don Agustin, who loved Conacaste wood. The sweater is a tribute to the connection between nature and the places of my childhood. That, my heart. Can you see how she just how she personifies nostalgia in all of her patterns in memory lane? So this is just one that I chose to highlight. But what a beautiful, beautiful tribute to her grandfather. This is beautiful. Hopefully one day, I do not own her book right now. I hopefully will acquire a copy at some point and, be able to experience this tribute of nostalgia that she has. So next we are arriving in Brazil. So we have Paula Pereira, who is a native of São Paulo, Brazil, and now lives in the country of Angola. Now, I'm not too familiar myself with the country of Angola. I'm not sure what the climate might be over there as far as knitting goes. I would describe Paula's library as understated texture with smart details. Now, need I say again, texture. That's all we need to say. She does have an entire book on just textured knit patterns, so I think that would be a fun purchase for myself at some point. So clearly, of course, the 4 patterns that I chose from her all have some element of texture. So the first one that I am highlighting is called Lopo, which is named after Lopo Javier, the owner of the yarn store from Porto, Portugal. So she visited the yarn store and really had a lovely experience with the family running the store. And, she drew inspiration for the piece, which I think is really nice. So this one has, just a touch of ease from 1.75 to 4.25 inches of positive ease. It has, and it's knit up in this beautiful marigold toasted color with lots of different bands of texture running throughout. So like I said, very smart finishings, very beautiful, crisp details, and lovely, lovely texture. The next pattern from her is Lina. Lina is knit in a fingering weight yarn on a gauge of 24 stitches per 4 inches. So it has a marled two-tone effect that is created by the soothing and intuitive alteration of 2 colors. The sleeves have a different motif, but also worked in the same 2 colors. The inspiration for Lina was the Italian architect Lina Bobardi and the glass and concrete easels that she created to display pieces in the Sao Paulo Museum of Art. So it uses, she says, basic stitches that will create colorful textured motifs, a really fun technique. I personally have not delved into color work or two-toned knitting, so I think this would be a really fun pattern to try that out with. Next, we have the Diamantine pullover sweater knit in a GK weight yarn for a gauge of 24 stitches by 25 rows. So it is a seamless top-down sweater with an all-over diamond cable pattern and a beautiful ribbed neckline. Paula's inspiration was to create a highly textured fabric for a construction so many knitters love, the top-down raglan. We all love a good top-down raglan. Diamantine, which in Portuguese means diamond, will be a garment that you will treasure for years to come. Beautiful diamond cables, a nice, lovely neutral color, a beautiful piece. And the last one that I have from Paula is the Casadinho, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Casadinho Cardigan, worked in a bulky weight yarn for a gauge of 20 stitches per 4 inches. The Casadinho cardigan can be worn both on its own, or she does have a matching slip over to pair underneath it. It features a textured rib pattern that looks stunning yet is easy to knit with practical pockets for a finishing touch. So this just looks so squishy and bouncy, and I think having that matching shell or like a tank underneath is just makes for such a like classy piece, classy little set. I love that. So our journey in Brazil has ended, and let's keep on moving. The last stop that we have in our Latin American knitting journey is Chile, which I did not know that Chile has such a strong knitting culture and has quite a few pattern designers. I was able to find a good little compilation there. And if you think about it, it does make sense. Chile does have a higher altitude. It does have a cooler/colder climate. It is home to the famous Patagonia. Well, it shares the Patagonia with Argentina. That is one of my bucket list places. I would love to go to the Patagonia Chilena at some point in my life. Ir a las Torres del Paine. It's just a stunning place. So our first designer is Macarena Silva, and she draws inspiration from the nature found in the Patagonia Chilena. So I have two patterns from her, which are the only two accessory patterns that I have in this roundup. So it is the Alpina Hat and the Alpina Cowl. So let's start with the cowl. So it is knit in a sport weight yarn for a gauge of 27 stitches per 4 inches. So the Alpina is I'm trying to read in Spanish and translate in English in my mind. She does have the English translation to make my life a little bit easier. So the Alpina takes its name from the Colarea Alpina, which is a delicate orchid that grows in the rugged highlands of Patagonia, which endures the icy winds and the bright sun of the mountains. It is a beautiful contrast found in winter days, pretty soft and functional textiles that protect us in cold winter days. And it is actually made in Merino Patagonica, so merino produced in the Patagonia region. So it is a colorwork cowl with that beautiful little flower motif. As a good millennial, anytime I see this golden color mixed with burgundy, I'm thinking Gryffindor from Harry Potter. I cannot unsee that ever. But I love that. I love that so much. I think this is a beautiful cowl and makes a beautiful set with the Alpina Hat. So the Alpina Hat is knit with that same yarn in a sport weight with the same gauge of 27 stitches as well. So it is a double brimmed hat with the colorwork motif, or you can make it single as well. So it has the same colorwork motif working up. And I think this matching little set together would just be so fun and beautiful, and has a beautiful inspiration as well. Our second Chilean designer is Marcela Chang. So she has a lot of colorwork patterns, and I see that she uses Manos del Uruguay as a very common yarn in her pattern, which I think because that's really fun. I haven't personally worked with Manos del Uruguay, but I have heard good things about it. So I have 2 adult patterns and then a bonus kid pattern. So that would probably be pattern number 21. But we're only counting the adult patterns for the 20 for the 20. So we'll start with the River Light. So this is the lightweight version of her original River Pullover. So this one is worked in a fingering weight yarn for a stitch pattern of 23 stitches per 4 inches. So it has a circular yoke with an all over cable pattern, and it is an update of a classic timeless cable sweater and is clearly the perfect addition to anybody's wardrobe. So this is again a very classic pattern. If you don't want to deviate too far out and you like the classic patterns of very popular designers, I think this is a really nice way to support a smaller designer while still not going too far out of your comfort zone. And the fact that it is a fingering weight does make it something that I am far more likely to knit up. If you like a thicker fabric, she does have the regular River Pullover, which I believe is a worsted weight if I am not mistaken. The other adult pattern that I have for her is called Otoño, which means fall, the season of autumn. And this one is worked up in a worsted weight yarn for a gauge of 18 stitches per 4 inches. So this one is a colorwork yoke sweater inspired by the fallen leaves of autumn. Warm and cozy with that colorwork pattern. It worked top down with the short rows for good fit. And I feel like this is a good one where you could use just 2 colors, or you could add in more to kind of be as adventurous as you would like. A nice, good, classic, geometric, again, nothing too wild. So if you prefer, just a little bit of zhuzh to your knitwear, I think this is a good one. And then the little bonus that I had to include is her Rambla Kidz, which is a children's sweater worked in Aran weight yarn for a gauge of 16 stitches and 22 rows. So it has just a little bit of short rows and color work, and just, I think it's just so cute and fun. And I would love to knit this up for my niece at some point. Maybe not right now, but eventually. I think this is just really fun. And the colors that she knit her sample in, I think are really beautiful for a little girl. So I had to include that one as well. And the last designer on this list, also hailing from the country of Chile, we have Josefina Vergara, also known as Pope Vergara. Now, Pope has quite an extensive catalog. Her knits are very whimsical, lighthearted, lots of beading and embellishment, lots of pastels and brighter colors. I think that is quite unique and very refreshing to see. I have picked 3 of her patterns to showcase. So let's start with the Moulin Rouge. Again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that one correctly, but we're going to go for it. So the Moulin Rouge is an elegant top-down seamless design that has a sophisticated lace pattern and a beautiful mix of materials, adding texture and charm to the garment. It also has a wider neckline that gives it a nice feminine touch. The glamour and elegance of the iconic Parisian cabaret was the inspiration from this design. So as mentioned, it does have a play on texture. It does have panels made in lace weight and panels made in fingering. And also the top panels here the yarn has embellishment. I'm blinking on the word beads. It has beads and sequins in the yarn already, which I think is quite interesting. Of course, you can also do it without the beading, which, to be honest, I think I'm not adventurous enough to start adding in beading to my knits. So I would probably go for a more toned down option. But I do really enjoy the play on textures and find this to be a very elegant piece. I like the very open neckline as well. I find that to be very elegant. This is definitely a piece that I could see myself knitting up someday. Another piece of her is the Kaleidoscope Sweater. So the Kaleidoscope is knit in a DK weight yarn for a gauge of 19 stitches by 25 rows. So this is a top-down sweater, seamless, and it has a beautiful combination of cables and beads to create a very unique yoke. It also has the option of doing a fingering weight yarn as well, not just a DK, which I love when designers provide that double gauge option to kind of accommodate people in different climates or that have different fabric preferences. And the fits varies a little bit depending on what thickness of yarn you want to use. But the combination, I think, of having the beads inside of these beautiful little triangles is very unique and very kaleidoscope, as the name says. So I don't think I had seen one using this particular technique, which I think is really fun. And then the last one is the Morning Fog tee. So this one is knit in a fingering weight yarn on a gauge of 22 stitches by 32 rows. So this one has quite a few different techniques. So it uses some crochet techniques to add in the beading, the panels in different yarn colors and weights. I think it can allow for a lot of personalization and creativity, just depending on how much beading or sparkle or lack thereof you would like to include. I think this is a nice one if you kind of want to expand on the techniques that you're utilizing in your knitting. And I think a lot of Bopis patterns would be really good for that purpose. So there we have it, 20 patterns made by Latin American knitwear designers and one bonus kid pattern as well. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, that you were able to find some sort of inspiration. Maybe I exposed you to a new design that you were not aware of before. And overall, you know, with each video, we continue to grow our appreciation for this craft. So thank you so much for spending some time with me and sticking around. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to join this beautiful little community and stay up to date with all of our knitting adventures. So until the next one, bye.